All right, in this video, we're going to look at revenue, revenue for the monopolist and how it differs from perfect competition. And remember, with a monopoly, when you have only one seller, it's this one seller, single seller, that's supplying the entire market demand curve. And remember, law of demand, right? Makes the demand curve that downward sloping, which means, okay, as right, output increases, okay, as prices decrease, output moves in the opposite direction. So price falls, quantity demanded increases. That's right, basic law of demand. And because of that fact, to sell more units of a good, right, a monopolist has to lower the price of all of its units sold in order to do so. So I'll give you a quick example. If you remember in the last chapter, a firm in perfect competition, once the market price is established of $6, it could sell as many units as it wants at that price. So demand, we said, was equal to marginal revenue, was equal to average revenue, which is equal to price. All of these are equal because for every additional unit I produce and sell, my marginal revenue is the same. Well, monopoly and all of the other market structures, that's what makes this kind of concept so important. Our marginal revenue is not going to remain consistent with price as it does in perfect competition. The reason is if I'm going to sell additional unit, I got to lower the price for all of the units because I can't price discriminate, which means I can't charge each consumer different prices based on what they're willing to pay. So in this quick example I came up with here, this monopolist, if it's going to sell its first unit, it has to lower the price to $10. So at $10, we have one individual, one consumer willing to purchase this good. So our marginal revenue and our total revenue, right, are equal to $10. So as we go through, we can kind of identify these things. So we've got a price at $10. We have a total revenue of $10. One unit of output multiplied by the price is $10. Total revenue is 10. The important thing to remember that's going to hold and go through, hold constant with all of these things we look at, is price is always equal to the demand curve. Okay, you're always going to find market price on the demand curve. Okay, so if I'm going to then sell this second unit, I have to lower the price to, you can come over here and see, to $9 in order to sell that second unit. I can't sell two at 10. I have to lower both of them to a price of $9. So I'm losing $1 of revenue that I had on my first unit, or I would have if I only sold one. But I'm selling two, so I'm lowering them both. So now I have a price of 9, and at that price I can sell 2. So 2 times 9, my total revenue is 18. So now here's where we can start to see what is taking place. If I go to sell my third unit, that should be not really drawing a scale there, but close. My third unit, I have to lower the price to 8 for all three. So I got a price of $8. I can sell 3. 3 times 8 is 24. And now we're starting to see why this marginal revenue curve falls below the demand curve. Remember, demand is price. Demand will also be equal to average revenue. So if I look at this, right, marginal revenue is the change in total revenue divided by the change in the quantity. So going from 0 to 1, my total revenue changed by 10. So I take my 10, change in total revenue divided by my change in quantity, which is 1, gives me a marginal revenue of 10. Average revenue of 10. Take my total revenue divided by my quantity. And that makes sense. They all are on the same point on this graph. When I go to sell my second unit, I have to lower the price. So now my total revenue is 18. 2 times 9. Well, my change figure my marginal revenue, my change in total revenue is 8 divided by my change in quantity, which is 1. So my marginal revenue is now 8. So by producing that second unit of good, that second unit, I'm gaining 8 additional dollars of revenue. Right, that's the change. And you can come here and you can see where my marginal revenue curve, now I go up on my second unit and I hit the marginal revenue curve at 8. Well, if I go to 3, my marginal revenue is going to be 6, right? Change in total revenue is 6 divided by change in quantity of 1. So now my marginal revenue is 6. And that makes sense. So this gap is widening. Okay, at my units of 3, I go up and I hit the price. Remember, price is always on the demand curve. But my marginal revenue is down here at 6. So you can kind of see why the demand curve or the marginal revenue curve will always fall below the demand curve when in perfect competition they were the same thing. I hope that kind of helps answer one of your, I think it's question 4 on your assignment, but this will hold true for all other markets other than perfect competition. So monopolistic competition, oligopoly, and everything, all market structures other than perfect competition. All right, the last thing I wanted to show in this video here is what happens when our marginal revenue hits 0. So if we come down here and we look at this 4th unit, okay, where marginal revenue hits 0. If we go up and we hit the demand curve, we hit this price of 6. So our total revenue, okay, total revenue, 6 times 4, right, is 24. Okay, hope that makes sense. Now, our change in total revenue doesn't change, right? 0. So our marginal revenue then falls to 0 at that point. And if we were going to go and produce a 5th unit, okay, so we come over here and produce our 5th unit, we come up and hit the demand curve, and we'll say that that price would be 5. Okay, that price would be 5. Oops, sorry, 4. What I wanted to say. What's going to happen then is we take 5 times 4, and our total revenue then is 20. And we can see how our marginal revenue then would be down here, and it would be negative. In this case, right, -4. And this is important because what this does is separates our demand curve into 2 points. And this is that point where marginal revenue, okay, equals 0, and this is where our demand curve is is separated into 2, the midpoint. Remember when it's unitary elastic? So we've got elastic demand curve and inelastic. Where marginal revenue hits 0, that is the point that separates our demand curve between inelastic and elastic. So a monopolist would never knowingly produce, right, down in this area of the demand curve where demand curve is inelastic. And the reason why is because as they increase output or change price, you're going to see a decrease in, you're going to see negative marginal revenue or a decrease in total revenue. So a monopolist would never operate in this area of the demand curve knowingly.